What if I told you that buying your first home isn't nearly as impossible as it seems right now? My brother Sean was convinced he missed his shot. But in just one conversation over coffee, we completely changed his perspective. And today, I'm going to share with you exactly how we did it. Maybe you can agree. Do you ever feel like you're just throwing money away on rent every single month? Well, you're not alone. My brother was sitting across the table from me. He had that defeated look in his eyes. And he was saying, Rich, with these prices and interest rates, that homeowner train has left the station. He was thinking for himself, his wife, and their newborn son. And look, I get it. Home prices are high right now. Interest rates aren't great. But here's the short version. Just waiting for the perfect conditions might be the most expensive mistake you can make. And really, that's because every month you wait is another month of paying rent and building someone else's equity instead of your own. So today, I'm breaking down the exact strategies and programs that could help you get off the sidelines and into your first home. Even in this market, even with today's interest rates. And stick around until the end for the strategy that saved us over $4,800 on closing costs. Something most lenders won't tell you about because it literally costs them money. So my brother Sean and I are having coffee and he asked me something really interesting like right away. He said, what about buying a duplex? Is it crazy to live in one unit and rent out the other? I just smiled. Actually, I told him because that might be one of the smartest moves you could make right now. And that's exactly what I did when I bought my first home. So if you're not familiar with the term like house hacking, then here's what it basically means. In a traditional home situation, you buy the house and live in it and you alone pay all the bills. But in a house hack situation, you buy the home and live in part of the house, usually a separate unit. And you rent out the other parts of your house and bring in rental income because your tenant or even tenants pay you rent every month. And sometimes the rent your tenants are paying you, it only covers a portion of the mortgage payment, right? But it can cover the whole thing or even leave you making money while living in and renting out part of your house. So then I told Sean, you can even use something called a FHA loan with as little as 3.5% down for the down payment. And as long as you live in one of the units, then that's going to be something you seriously want to look into. And he was just throwing out there like a $300,000 duplex. So I told him that's just $10,500 for the down payment instead of the standard $60,000 for a traditional 20% down payment that you would need. And right there, Sean's eyes lit up. He was like, yeah, and we wouldn't just be throwing money away on rent. So exactly, I said. Because then he would be building equity because he owned the home while someone else helps pay for it. Basically, that's just one strategy to essentially be getting paid to be a homeowner. So when I mentioned the FHA government programs, Sean was shocked. He's like, wait, the government will help me buy a house? Yes, I said. And these aren't mystery programs. They're designed specifically for first-time home buyers and even people who think that home ownership is out of reach. Now, there are tons of these programs. Some might be state-specific, so definitely check in your own area. But the top three that I always like to mention are FHA loans, because with as little as 3.5% down and a credit score of 580 or better, you can get yourself into that first home. And again, just to sort of like reiterate and remind you here, on a $300,000 home, that's just $10,500 down. And that's like the price of an old used car being the same as the price of your ticket to home ownership. Another program is USDA loans. These are zero down payment required for homes in eligible areas. And the surprising part that like a lot of people don't really realize is that 97% of US land qualifies, including some suburbs. And then, of course, there are VA loans. So if you or your spouse served in the military, you could qualify for a 0 down payment required loan also. I told Sean, here's the deal. Don't just go with whatever loan your bank or lender offers. You can shop around and find the right match and probably save yourself thousands of dollars. So then, point blank, Sean asked me, well, what about down payments? Like he's wondering, should we put down as much as possible or keep more cash, in reserves, but have a higher down payment? Well, yeah, I said, more down means a lower monthly payment, but less cash for emergencies or, even fixing up the place, if you wanted to do some renovations. And then less down means a higher monthly mortgage payment, but you got cash on hand for life. So just drilling it in for him on that $300,000 home, 20% down, $60,000. Now, give or take, that's about a $1,300 mortgage payment. But if you go with that 3.5% down, that's all you got to come up with, right? That's $10,500. But your monthly payment is going to be around $1,900. So I'm just telling them, hey, there's options, right? Yes, you might have a monthly payment that's a little bit higher, like $600 more per month. But you get to keep $49,500 in your pocket when you're buying that first home. And honestly, having some cash reserves when you're buying that first home is never a bad thing because, and I know this, you know this if you have a home, that first year of homeownership always comes with tons of unexpected expenses. Now, there's one shocking truth the banks don't advertise to you, and it's how payments work for a mortgage. You see, and most people don't realize this, you don't just buy a house, get a mortgage, and then pay it off little by little each month. No, that's not the way mortgages actually work. See, most of your mortgage payments, those first years, are mostly just interest payments to the bank. Seriously, like none of it, like a very small amount of it actually goes to paying on the principal to pay off the house based on the price you paid for the house. Imagine borrowing like 30 pieces of chocolate from your friend, right? And your friend says, all you got to do is pay him back one piece of chocolate each month, plus like a small thank you fee. But the catch is, at first, most of the payment you're making is that thank you fee called the interest. And later, way later, more of the payment actually becomes that chocolate repayment or the principal amount. And that's exactly how mortgages work. Early payments are mostly interest, and it's later payments that are mostly principal. So anyway, I'm explaining this to my brother Sean, and he's like, wait a minute. You're telling me that in like the first years, almost all of my mortgage payment goes to interest? Exactly, I said. This is the part the banks don't talk about in all their like fancy brochures. And don't get me wrong, they'll disclose it somewhere in the paperwork, but in a typical 30-year mortgage, your early payments mostly go to interest, not the principal. Honestly, it's not until around like year 15 that your payments finally split evenly, like 50-50, 50% interest and 50% paying back the principal that you actually borrowed from the bank all those years ago. And the reason this matters so much for your first home is that if you can afford a couple $100 extra monthly, then that could end up saving you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest and help you pay off the home 5, 7, even 10 plus years early, just by making that little bit of extra payment towards the principal every single month. But honestly, that's not even the biggest mistake I see first-time homebuyers make. No, the biggest mistake is trying to skip that starter home and go straight to their dream home. I know, right? Everyone wants their dream home, but there is a starter home strategy that most people might want to consider. And for example, it's just a couple of things like to keep in mind when you're buying that first home. The first one is, just get a place that works for you and plan to stay for at least 5 to 7 years to build up some equity. And another aspect to consider is something called the 28-36 rule. And that means that you don't spend more than 28% of your income on housing and then 36% of your income on total debt. That little rule will help you figure out how much house you should actually afford as the starter home. So yeah, modest starter home lets you actually enjoy life far more than getting that dream home that's going to keep you up worrying about paying all the bills night after night. Now, one of the last things I wanted to bring up with my brother is something most first-time homebuyers miss, and it's the closing costs. I mean, closing costs can run 2 to 5% of the loan amount. So again, on that $300,000 home, that's another $6,000 or $15,000 you're going to need on top of your down payment. So Sean and I were feeling pretty good about all this home buyer strategy stuff, and I wanted to share one more money-saving tip, and that's when my wife and I bought her first home. We actually offered $5,000 above the asking price, but we requested $8,000 in something called seller's concessions towards the closing costs. And this is a little trick, but by doing that, we effectively financed our closing costs into the mortgage to basically help close that deal and get her her first home. So by the end of our coffee talk, Sean wasn't looking defeated anymore. He had a game plan to take back home to his wife and newborn son. And he said, okay, this actually feels doable now. Home ownership isn't some distant dream. It's a winnable game once you understand the rules. So please give this video a thumbs up and share it. Text it to somebody right now that needs this information. And I'm really curious, if you're watching this, have you looked into any of these home buying programs before? Got a story to share yourself? I mean, which strategy surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And for even more help, click the link in the description of this video. I put my free first-time home buyers questions to ask and things to think about guide down there. That's something I put together as I was gathering all my thoughts for this video, so check it out.